Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a college football game preview and prediction over one of the bigger games of Week 4 of the 2020 college football season. And that's going to be between Florida and Ole Miss. And of course, it's going to be the first game for both these teams going in. Florida's looking like a national contender going into this season. Of course, many, including myself, are expecting them to be a full-time national contender. So, yeah, this is going to be a very important game for Florida, and it's also going to be an important game for Ole Miss in determining how their season is going to go and whether or not they can make it to a bowl game. So today we're going to be going over a full game preview and prediction on this, as well as my thoughts on how each team will do. And we're going to be starting off with the game info for this one. Of course, it's going to be on Saturday, September 26th, noon Eastern. And then, of course, it's going to be in Ole Miss for this one. Spread currently says Florida by 13 here. ESPN FPI says Florida 79%. And Vegas is expecting a blowout right now for Florida, 41-23, with Florida winning it. So obviously, Florida is heavily favored here. But, I mean, with it being in Ole Miss, I mean, who knows? Ole Miss could definitely hang around in this one. And, I mean, Ole Miss should certainly be a improved team this season, so you can't forget about that. But Florida in general, I mean, with Kyle Trask at quarterback, they're clearly the more talented team here. But once again, I mean, college football is full of upsets, and so you never know whether when it's going to happen. But once again, this one will be in Ole Miss. Spread currently says Florida by 13, and here's what we're looking at for your stat comparison. Of course, these are your 2019 final stats, since both of these teams have not played a game in 2020 yet. We're still having to go off of 2019, but as for Florida, of course, they had 33 points per game last year, along with 14.4 points allowed per game. So they had a great defense for sure. Obviously, one of the better defenses in the country to only allow 14 points or 2 touchdowns per game. So that's very impressive by Florida last season. They also had 300 pass yards per game, so Kyle Trask obviously showing his skills there. And then they also had 120 rush yards per game. So this was a heavily passing team last season, and that was pretty evident by how talented Kyle Trask was once again. It all wraps back to him. But as far as yards allowed go, of course, they allowed 192 pass yards and then 107 rush yards per game last season. As far as it goes on Ole Miss's side, of course, it's not nearly as good. They had a pretty rough 2019 season, so I mean that kind of explains the stats here. But they had 24.8 points per game. They allowed 20.4 points per game, and then they also had 205 pass yards, 102 rush yards, and then they allowed 235 pass yards and then 130 rush yards per game. So all around, I mean, their passing defense was pretty terrible last season. That was the main reason why they were not able to have a very good season. So that definitely needs to be improved going into this season, and especially if they're going to be able to beat off Florida here. But it's, especially for both teams, I mean, for Florida in particular, I mean, looking at the points allowed per game, yeah, they only allowed 14 points per game last season on average. So, yeah, they're looking very good on the defensive side, and looking at how they're not hardly losing anyone on the defensive side going into 2020. And that's something to watch out for. Florida could definitely have a top 3 or 4 defense in the country this season, I think. I mean, even on the offensive side, this Florida team is looking great. I mean, once again, looking back at Kyle Trask and this offense in general, I mean, yeah, this team is looking very good. First game for both teams, once again, of course, SEC getting kicked off this week. So we have not seen any SEC teams playing before this week. Florida is expected to be a top team in the nation for the majority of the season as well. Ole Miss had a pretty tough 2019 season. Once again, we've already really been over that. I mean, I believe they only had 4 wins in the 2019 season. And then Kyle Trask, of course, expected to be a top quarterback. And the lucky thing is that Florida has him. And I think in general, I mean, you've seen some of my talks on Kyle Trask. I think he's easily one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of college football. I mean, no one really ever talks about him for some reason. And you got to consider last season, I mean, he put up some insane stats, some of the best stats in the country. And that was only his first season as a college quarterback. I mean, he wasn't even expected to play last season because he was under Felipe Franks until he got injured. So once Felipe Franks got injured and he had a chance, yeah, he definitely capitalized on that. I mean, he had an excellent 2019 season, and he expected to be a top quarterback in 2020. And I think in general, he should be a top 3 quarterback in the nation this season. So that's going to be the main thing for Ole Miss, and what they're going to have to do to beat Florida here is, I mean, Ole Miss is going to have to be on Florida's heels the entire game. I mean, they cannot let Florida get away from them. Like, I think if Florida gets up by 2 or 3 touchdowns at some point in this game, I guess you might as well call the game over, because Florida's probably just going to run away with it at that point. But yeah, Ole Miss, they've got to stay on Kyle Trask's heels. They got to give him a lot of pressure if Ole Miss is even going to have a chance here. I mean, they've definitely got a defense to do it. I mean, Ole Miss definitely could be a team with a pretty good defense, but once again, I mean, you just got to keep the pressure up on him if you're even going to have a chance here. But here's what I'm expecting. As for the prediction, I think at halftime we're going to be seeing a blowout. 28-3 is going to be your halftime score. And then in the final, I think Florida ends up winning this one 42-17. So I think in the second half, Florida does slow down just a little bit, and they do allow Ole Miss to get a couple of touchdowns there. But I think in the end, I mean, Florida's going to get off to a really fast start. Expected to be probably 21-3 at the end of the first. And yeah, then 28-3 at the half. I think Florida in general is just in general the much more talented team here. Once again with Kyle Trask at quarterback, they've got a much better quarterback, much better offense, and the defenses in general. I mean, Ole Miss has a decent defense. It's not great by any means, but I mean for Florida, yeah, their defense is much better than Ole Miss in the end. And I think in general, I mean, who knows? It could be an impossible upset. I mean, Ole Miss being at home here, it could. I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy things in college football already this season, so I mean, nothing's really going to be surprising in the least at this point. But I mean, for Florida, yeah, 42-17, I'm expecting Florida to give Ole Miss a blowout this upcoming week. But anyway, with that being said, that wraps up my preview on Florida and Ole Miss. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on this game. Let me know your score predictions as well. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, once again, thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this preview, be sure to slap a like on it. Subscribe as well. It really helps out the channel. I really appreciate that. But as always, thanks again for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I'll see you all later.